During the American Civil War, foreign observers noticed something quite interesting and a bit unusual about the way the American infantry conducted battle. What usually happened is the infantry would close within about 100 yards of the enemy, and then everyone would start firing their muskets, and the enemy would return fire with their muskets, and then they would reload and open fire again and find some cover, and they would keep shooting each other with the muskets rather than closing in with the bayonet and finishing off the charge sort of thing. During the Napoleonic Wars, and quite a lot of European wars actually, what would normally happen is the line of infantry, say French Fusiliers, would open fire with the muskets and the British would advance and they'd open fire again, and at some point the British would charge, or the French would charge in with the muskets, and quite understandably you don't really want to be sitting there and waiting for someone to stab you with a bayonet. So you'd run away, or the enemy would run away, or you'd fail the charge and pull back and withdraw. But what happened is you'd send a unit in to, say, capture a hill. They'd advance, they'd charge, the enemy would run away. You'd actually get fewer casualties from 2 or 3 musket exchanges and a charge than from 50 minutes, an hour, 2 hours sitting there exchanging fire. But the Americans, in the American Civil War, for the majority of the time, wouldn't charge in with the bayonet. They'd get close, and then they'd stop, and then they'd hunker down and reload and fire and reload and fire. Obviously, I'm not saying this happened all the time only, and that was the only rule. There were obviously times where the infantry would get nice and close and personal. But as a general rule, it happened a lot less than in a lot of European wars. And the casualties were horrendous, and even if the generals sent in another brigade or detachment or whatever, they would get caught and stuck and they would start opening fire as well. So it's odd to kind of think about, but the bayonet, even though it's intended to murder and kill and take people down, its actual use was to save lives, to stop people dying, because you don't want to get stabbed. It's quite an intense thing. So if the Americans would have charged in with the bayonet at the hill or whatever, at whatever point, the Confederates would then retreat and run away, and you would have caught that objective, you'd have caught that point. But instead what happened is both sides would open fire a lot until a unit couldn't really take the casualties anymore, and then they'd kind of break off and back away, but it would take more units coming in, feeding in, more men coming in to feed into those points, and the cost in lives were much more, which is why more casualties happened in the Civil War than like all the other wars combined for America, apparently, as the internet tells us. I think, is it right? Is that a fact? We don't know. We think it's a fact. So, in conclusion, Americans don't like it up 'em, but the bayonet actually saves lives.